Well, one obvious thing that the government can do to ensure that only 50 acres is harvested is, well, the government can take over the land and just tell the village or tell whoever is harvesting that only 50 acres harvested. Okay, or the government can charge a Peruvian tax, right? So suppose that the village controls the forest, not that they have rights there or the legally defined rights, but they're just there. Okay, then how much should the government charge? Well, if we look at the graph here, right, we can see that, well, if the government charge $150 per acre, so that means, right, the village can harvest it, but the government is going to come in and charge the village $150 for every acre that is harvested. Will that reach to the 50 acres? Yes, because before 50 acres, right, the village has an incentive because even though they have to pay this $150, right, they still earn a surplus here from harvesting. But when they get to the 50th acre, right, they receive zero surplus because the benefit equals to the tax. Right, so charging a tax of $150 will give us the optimal outcome. All right. Now, so the two public approaches is one, control all the land and just tell the people to harvest at 50 or charge a tax. But notice that in either of these methods, right, it requires several things. One, it requires the government to actually know that 50 acre is the optimal. And how does the government know that? Well, how do we know that? Well, we knew that because we're given the function here. We're given the graph. So we know the marginal benefit of the village and we know the marginal cost of the city. Right? And so that's how we determine this. Right? In practice, however, right, these information are not readily available, right, to the government. So that's one barrier there. Okay? But even if the government were able to know this, right, government can have infinite information. They know both of these functions, and they know that 50 is the optimal. The second problem becomes, does the government even have the right to tax? Okay? Now, for those of us who grew up or living in a more developed society with institutions, with stronger institutions, right? We might kind of assume that we might put more faith in the legal process. Right? However, that's often not the case in developing countries, right? Where you have people or communities living on land for generations after generations, and the government, the institutions, are merely a few decades old, right? So to a lot of people, right, they might not acknowledge that the government have the right to tax us or to tax them, right? or to control and have a say in what the optimal should be. Okay, so here's the video. This is a case study in Nepal, so I highly encourage you to take a look at that. Right, but the government approach have these issues. Okay, then is there a better way? Is there a way where we can get around these barriers? Well, yes. So this brings us to the Coase theorem and free market environmentalism.